In this video, we're going to be covering some of the hottest mints coming up, as well as some updates on our favorite projects and a brand new meta that's taking the NFT world by storm. Now, the first project that we're going to dive right into is going to be Murakami Flowers Official. So basically, if you had the Murakami seed, which was literally like 5 ETH just a couple days ago, it's 8 ETH right now. And so what will happen is that you can use that NFT and then you can transform it essentially into a new NFT, and that is going to be the Murakami flower. So as you can see here, the flowers are already revealed. The art is what you expected from the leaks that we've seen online, where it's just kind of like this pixelated flower, different kind of styles, different kind of colors. They all kind of look the same in a sense. So I mean, some people have mixed feelings about this. Some people think like this is supposed to be fine art and that's all we get, and other people are like, oh, I actually like this. When we're going to the more rare ones, when we sort it by high to low on OpenSea at least, you can see like the rare ones are actually kind of interesting. Like there's a flower under the waterfall, samurai one, it's a Jason over there. This one is the with the octopus head. So actually the rare ones are actually quite unique. And then from there, when you scroll down, the other ones are still pretty cool, I would say. But again, it's not for everybody's taste. But, you know, this is a minimal pixelated style used for a PFP. And I do believe that these are going to be used for something more in the future as Murakami builds out his metaverse in his own way, as he does more art exhibitions, or if he does, you know, anything related to Artifact Studios, right? And so the way I look at it is, yes, the art is unique. Is it like, oh my God, is it like a Murakami drip like Clone X? No, it's not. But then it is its own style, and this is what you want to do. And personally, like, dude, look at this one. This one is actually kind of cool. So, I mean, the one-of-ones are pretty cool. The regular ones are okay, in my opinion, but I would still say it's very interesting. The other interesting part is that the seeds right now is 8.1 Ethereum, and as we just saw, the flowers are 6.2. So why is the seed more expensive? Well, what's going to happen most likely, if you know history likes to rhyme, is that a lot of people are going to hold the seeds where they're like, okay, I have the seed, it's going to be valuable, and if I just wait, you know, everybody's going to transform their seed into a flower, and then there's going to be some rare ones that are left, and then some people want to take the gamble and buy the seed for a chance to randomly roll for a rare flower. So we've seen this with the Clone X vial, where the floor of Clone X at the time of this recording is around 19 to 20 Ethereum, and then the vial is going to be 28 Ethereum. So it's like there's only 400 of these. So you might be thinking, okay, like why are people holding these vials? Why don't they just transform it into a Clone X? The reason is because, you know, there are going to be some Clone X's that people want. Maybe there's some rare ones, and some people like to pay a premium for the chance to roll the dice to see if they can get a rare Clone X. So similarly, because, you know, Artifact is so tightly close to Murakami at this point, some people are going to hold these flowers for a long time. They might be holding it for over a year, and then maybe one day when the floor price of a Murakami flower, let's say for example, is like 10 Ethereum, then the flower seed might be like 18 Ethereum, right? And some people will sell it at that time, and they'll just hold it because maybe they don't need the liquidity. So that's always a fun game to play for people who like to play this type of stuff. They might want to hold the seed for a year, you know, just wait for it to increase in value, right? Because, you know, if you're the seed holder, you don't have to take the risk of rolling it into a flower. You hold the seed, the thing goes up in price, and then you let the other guy take the risk and you charge him a premium for that. All right, so the next project that we are going to talk about is going to be crypto package goods. Now, a lot of people in alpha groups and stuff like that are saying this is going to be the next Moonbirds, right? And it was pretty funny because yesterday I was chilling in voice chat in the Parallax Discord. Make sure to join that if you haven't already. And somebody was like, hey, you know, everyone's saying that this project is going to be the next Moonbird. And then I was like, there's no next new Moonbirds, because it's like, you know, there just isn't, right? And he was like, no, you should gotta check this out. And so I checked it out. It's actually an interesting concept. So, you know, you have these group of people who are prominent business people in the crypto space, and then they have this Genesis collection, which is at the 35 floor Ethereum price. There's going to be 302 owners. This is kind of like reminding me of Proof a little bit, but not really, right? Because I mean, when you scroll down to the sale history of this project, 3 months ago it was like 10 ETH, and then now it's going to be 30 ETH. So it's increasing quite fast, I guess, in anticipation for this drop. Even like 5 months ago, it was worth like, you know, 2 to 3 Ethereum, and then it was even like 1 Ethereum. So similar to Proof in that sense. So what's going to happen is that they're going to drop another collection for everybody, where, you know, it's just not like 300 people in the NFT space or the Web3 space, but, you know, access to everyone, right? And so what does this thing give you if you were to buy it, right? It gives you alpha chats, which a lot of projects do. Genius call seminar, so they get, I guess, some more people and they come talk to you, or like, you know, have a talk or something like that, kind of like an interview. Trading insights, so I guess similar to like Origins, for example, if you know that project. So I mean, like showing you graphs and analysis. The way I see it, it's like basically a community of people that want to build in the Web3 space. So if you scroll down, you kind of look at their aesthetic. It's all about like building product, right? Building Web3 products. The art itself, it's cool. You know, it's definitely different. It's not going to be a PFP, so I don't think people are going to use it as their picture profile, which in a way is a weakness in my opinion. Maybe people don't care, you know. And then from here, basically they're just giving you more information, and then the Genesis NFT. So if you have the Genesis NFT, you get all these special things of minting and whatever, but most people watching this probably don't have the Genesis, so probably just focus on the pop NFTs. And then, you know, May 14th is going to be the day. And of course, you can go on their website yourself, and then they have like, you know, more details on what the alpha chat's going to look like, the incubator in terms of like helping you develop a product. So if you're someone who's a builder, this might be the right community for you. Calls to talk about, special experts in their particular field, right? Liquidity pools, portfolio strategy. So all the educational stuff. The way I look at it is it's a project where they help you first with alpha and education and trading, flipping, portfolio management, DeFi, which is great, right? A lot of alpha groups already do that. And then from there, it's like, okay, now that you are in this community, do you want to be someone that builds a product and service? And it just so happens that we have a lot of mentors that might be able to help you out or invest in your business, right? And I think that they're definitely going that route. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff like consulting services and basically like traditional Web 2 stuff, but adding it into Web 3, which is good because it's like, I feel Web 3 is very unstructured and kind of free flow. And so it's interesting to see a company kind of like make it a little bit more structured and say like, hey, this is what we're going to give you. Now, if you want to mint this project, you have to go on the pre-mint website. And right now you have to have at least 3 Ethereum in your wallet, right? So it's more expensive than Moonbird. Mint price is going to be 3 Ethereum. So you can connect your wallet, follow them on Twitter, then hopefully you win the raffle. For Moonbirds, for example, a lot of people didn't have 2.5 ETH in their wallet. So, if you enter that raffle, which I was too lazy to do at the time, you had like a 25% chance to actually mint a Moonbird. If you, have 3 ETH to spare and you want to just like, sign up, then I don't think it can hurt, because if it becomes a big project, then you have the opportunity to mint. If you don't win the raffle, whatever, it only takes like a minute to sign up for this. So no affiliation with them. I don't get any whitelists for this. I'm just letting you know what people are telling me. Now, speaking of alpha, recently I heard of this pass called Mirror Pass. There's not too much information about it on OpenSea, but a lot of people are buying this. It's kind of like a sketchy kind of NFT where, they are in many different alpha groups. And then what they do is they just like copy all the text from those alpha groups and they put it into their own Discord. So like somebody who maybe doesn't have money to afford whatever alpha group pass, you basically can buy this one for 0.19, and then it'll just copy all these alpha groups and put it into Discord. The problem with this is I believe it does go against Discord's terms of service. Like if this NFT disappeared tomorrow and like the Discord was shut down and this wasn't allowed anymore, I'm pretty like confident that probably will happen. And then like there's so many clones of this happening. So there's the Mirror Pass, right, which takes everyone's alpha, they put it into a thing. And then from there, you have the Mirror Pass, which takes all the alpha that the Mirror Pass took from the other groups and then mirrors that. And so it just copies one place now. Personally, in my opinion, I don't know how useful that is, because I feel like the value of alpha, yes, you get information, but at the same time, the point of an alpha group is that you meet people in your community and like you make friends, build a community, and you take that to like private chats and things like that. But if you're just kind of copying information, if you think about it, if everybody has the same information, then whatever advantage you have is really just a commodity. I think the real opportunity with alpha passes is to connect with other people on a real level. And like when you own the same NFT, there's this special connection. And I would highly recommend that versus just, if you want to try this, go ahead, but then don't be surprised if like this NFT becomes, useless and zero, a week from now. One of the things I mentioned in the beginning of this video is this is meta going on about NFTs that focus on purely utility. So I'm not talking like picture profiles and branding and metaverse. I'm talking about like literally like SaaS software tools that you can use and you buy an NFT to get access, right? Basically, this is meta going on where you have a lot of tools essentially copying each other's features and then adding a layer of like graphics on top of that and then being like, oh, we're a new thing, we're better than everybody else. Who's better than who? I'll kind of explain that in a second, but let's go ahead and like dive into this. So of course, in the beginning of the NFT space, if you were in the space for a while, at the time, a lot of people used like Nansen and Icy tools, which were the main ones. And then now basically there's all these tools that came out, right? About December, January, I was looking for tools to help me like mint stuff, faster, or like bots to help me like send out bids and things like that. And I remember back in those days, it was just so hard to find a tool that was user-friendly, that looks good, that felt like something you could trust. Now it's like people are just copying the best features of other tools, making it better and adding UI. So like, for example, I'm not saying you should buy this or not. I personally haven't used it, but let's say Alpha Sharks, which I covered on my channel, right? They have a PFP, it's a shark, but the shark doesn't really matter because it's basically a tool to replace like a sniping tool and like analytics tool, right? And then you have like other projects like Flipper, for example, which is coming out, basically saying like, you have all these features. If you use Icy tools, we're way better than them. If you use Alpha Sharks, we're way better than them because we have all these things, right? Are they actually better? I don't know, because I never used it personally yet. I'm going to try it out sometime, but I mean, the mint is 0.09. So it's like, okay, interesting. And then you have these other tools like Just Cubes, for example, which allow you to be able to mint, set your gas fees a lot higher. They have like faster nodes and things like that. So if you enter a gas war, you definitely want to use some kind of tool to speed up that process versus people who are just using MetaMask. And then there's like Flava tools, which is like the same thing as Just Cubes, plus a bunch of other features like bidding and all the other stuff that like Alpha Shark has, right? It's good that there's all these softwares kind of competing directly against each other because it just makes the space so much better. So, and the price goes lower, better for the consumer. And then everyone has to keep innovating, making all the features and the UI, UX much better. Now, if you're looking at these projects from an investment standpoint, the challenge here is that if everyone's copying each other, they all have the same features because they literally can't just copy each other's code. Everyone has to charge a low mint price, right? There's always going to be someone who's going to be cheaper and faster. So it's almost like a race to the bottom. And when you look at software from the perspective of Web 2, what ends up happening is there's going to be like a couple winners that beat everybody out, and everyone else cannot really compete because they're not cheaper, they're not faster, and so nobody will buy them. I wouldn't recommend buying a certain tool to invest in the long term because the majority of these tools are going to die. 1 or 2 or 3 of them might be the ones that take it home, in my opinion. But if you were trading off of Meta, like right now the Meta is like all these software tools are coming out and like there's a new one every day, and then like there's a bunch of newbies and they need software, right? You can definitely trade and make profit in the short term, but in the long term it's quite dangerous unless you pick like the one that becomes it, and it's hard to say which one is going to be the one. But if you haven't been using tools, you definitely should take a look into some of the tools because it does help you, especially if you're trying to win a gas war, if you're trying to snipe, if you're trying to do mass bidding, because it makes things a lot easier, especially if you're someone who's trying to mint like hype mints like other sides or PXN or whatever else is coming up. I would recommend use a tool because everyone else is using tools. If you don't have it, then they are going to beat you, and whoever has that slight advantage is the one that's going to win. Now, in other news, Johnnie Walker, the alcohol beverage company, has a official partnership with VeeFriends and Gary Vee. Now, this is quite interesting because VeeFriends seems like a family-friendly kind of thing. See, like these VeeFriends like symbol over here is part of Johnnie Walker, and so you can see like the gift goats. So I'm guessing that he's going to give these to the people who bought this special NFT. You get the gift every month or every so often, and this is quite interesting because, you know, if you're Johnnie Walker, you're getting all this free advertising and your brand is kind of being put on the main stage relevant scene in terms of like bleeding edge like NFTs, right? So if you think about it, Gary Vee doing VeeFriends, right, sells all these NFTs, makes tens of millions, even over 100 mil, right? At this point, I'm not even sure. And then from there, you know, basically all they do is just like put special designs on the bottle, but it's really just the blue label that they've been selling for so long. And then people like me who basically make YouTube videos will cover this stuff. And then now Johnnie Walker is in the minds of all the people that watch this, right? And so it's quite genius for Johnnie Walker to do this because all they really have to do is just partner with someone and let them do all the work and just print the thing on the label, and they do all the marketing. And then it gets a lot of free marketing. And then the next time, you know, you go to a bar, you might buy a Johnnie Walker because Patrick mentioned it in the video, right? And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't buy it because I don't promote alcohol over here, but this is just an interesting brand play, right? And I could imagine that VeeFriends, you know, from my understanding of listening to a lot of interviews with Gary Vee, because I'm always trying to learn like what is he trying to do with VeeFriends. VeeFriends is almost like an IP that you can put on any type of consumer packaged good. So like you can have a VeeFriends cereal, a VeeFriends alcohol, VeeFriends toys, VeeFriends ice cream, for example, right? So you can basically partner with any type of business, use your IP and put it on top just like Mickey Mouse, and then people will buy it because they really like that intellectual property, right? So it's quite interesting to think about. And even as we build the Parallax NFT, you know, those are things that I'm also thinking about, right? There's utility, there's IP side, there's partnering side. So there's a lot of things you can do with a successful NFT brand, and there's always something to learn from projects like this. So I'm curious to see, you know, what other examples VeeFriends will have in the physical world, because I think, you know, because Gary Vee is so good at understanding consumers and creating consumer product goods for those people, like Empathy Wines, for example, he's always an example that you should possibly look at if you're trying to get ideas on what to do to provide utility for holders. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Patrick Dang. Join the Discord, the Parallax, because we're going to be dropping the NFT real soon. If you want more information on that, make sure to join, and I will see you guys in the next one.